Okay, welcome back. So today I want us to look at something else. Yesterday I think we looked at flow control.
The flow control.
Then I think we looked at break, continue, and jump, go to. It's actually called
Yeah.
jumping, but the implementation is go to. Then
Okay.
we looked at operators. Yeah, not operators, but control structure. No, we looked at after flow controls. We looked at functions, right? So we discussed
Yeah.
functions, and
Yeah. Functions.
we saw how functions can either return a value or not return a value. Functions can have
Mm.
parameters or they might not have parameters, and things like that, right? And of course, how
Yeah.
to invoke the functions to make them perform some certain things. Then today, that was a recap for yesterday. So today, I want us to look at a very interesting type of data called arrays. I know we have discussed arrays in detail, not arrays, but we have discussed primitive data types in detail. So today I want us to look at what we call civilized data types, as some people call them. So in most programming languages, you have both primitive types. These are basically the data types like strings and floats and and boolean and things like that. Yeah, but then we have
Yeah.
civilized data types or object data types, and one of them is an array. So an array will basically be a variable that can store more than one value. Variable that can store rather more than one value. So initially, if we sorry one value, let's give an example of, let me say I have three fruits and I want to store the three fruits in variables. Traditionally, what I would have done is I would say fruit one equals mango, isn't it?
Yeah.
And probably fruit two equals apples. Fruit two equals apples, and fruit three equals maybe say pineapples. Now, when you have this kind of a primitive data type, all these data types store a string. And as you can see, this does not scale very well because every time I want to store another variable, I have to introduce a variable. So this does not scale very well. So instead of this, because they are similar, and by the array elements don't need to be similar, we can store them in one variable called array. So how do you define arrays? You can define it in two ways. So I'll start with the first type of array, which is called an indexed array. PHP has two types of arrays. We have indexed arrays and we have the other category which we're going to discuss shortly. So index array is where elements are referred to by their indexes. So you can define them in either of the two ways. So I can have here fruits, then I can declare it as, and this is how I like to declare it, square bracket like that. Then I put my element inside that bracket. So I can have here apples, mangoes, and oranges. Then I can come and add pineapples. Then I can even come and add bananas. And as you can see, this one becomes very, very scalable as we move along. Okay. So this
Yeah.
is an example of an array, of an indexed array. Now, whenever you want to access an element in the array, you will have to refer to it by its index. So the first element apple here is index number one, mango is index number two, and so forth and so forth. But array are zero-based index. So even as much as this is index number one, we'll start counting at zero. So this becomes zero, this becomes one, this becomes two, three, and four. So if you wanted to display pineapple, we'll simply say zero, one, two, three. So we can simply say here, echo fruits. Then I simply say three, like that. Okay, that would refer to the third element in the array. So let's try that out and see what it does. So here I'll use arrays, and you can see it gives me pineapples. So if I wanted the first element, I'll put zero, and that should be able to give me apples. So this is an example of an indexed array. So this is one of the ways you can define it. You can also define it like this. You can say fruits equals array. Then you put the elements inside this brackets like that. So the following, the one below, is also another way you can define it using the keyword array. Then of course, instead of using a square bracket, you use a regular bracket, and it should be able to allow you to achieve the exact same results. As you can see, that's apple, and I can try it again to make sure that it's giving me oranges so that I confirm that it's actually working. As you can see, it's oranges, so it actually works. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is an example of, sorry, that's an example of an indexed array. Then the other categories of arrays we have are called associative arrays. And these are the arrays that have value key pairs. So these are arrays with value and key pairs. So for example, let me create an array of students. So maybe I want admission number and name. So here I can mask this off and declare an array here, students and students. Now I'll use this method. I like this method more. So I have a student, not students, but student. So student has different properties. So I have admission number. That's the key. Admission number, that's the key. Then I have the admission number, which is SCCI stroke 2017. It was looking like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
P maybe 0024, something like that, right? Then I can have
Yeah.
maybe something like first name. Now here you don't put equal to sign, but you put an equal to sign with an with the greater than symbol. So this is the associate. So this is the key, or this is the key, and this is the value. Then when you want to define another one, maybe say you want to say names, first name, and this one is John, John. Then maybe last name is John. So this is an example of an associative array. So we have a key and value, key and value, key and value. Okay. So how do we access the um, the key value? So if I wanted the first name, I'll simply say echo student. Then I'll put the key, which is first name. That should be able to allow me to access the value of the index. So I say student, then I say the key. So that particular statement will now give me the value associated with that key. Let's try it out and see. You can see it gives me John. And I can try another key, maybe say admission number. Or I can say admission number, then I say the first name, right?
Yeah.
Then maybe I can put an end of line here. Um, I'm hoping it's going to give me an end of line. Well, it does not give me an end of line, but you can see I have admission number and I have the name. What's important is the principal, not really how it is displaying. So that's an associative array, and we'll be dealing with this kind a lot. This one is what will actually flatten to be what we call a JSON object. So, for example, when you're returning our data from the database, it's going to come in this format. Then we flatten it so that it becomes a JSON object, which you can now forward back to JavaScript and be able to process it as we move along. Si mpaka hapo tuko sawa?
Kabisa.
Now let's look at multi-dimension arrays. So we have multi-dimension or multi-dimensional arrays. So these are arrays that have multiple dimensions. As you can see, most of the arrays I've discussed here are one-dimension arrays. So if you look at the fruits, it's one dimension, only apples, mangoes, and all that. If you look at student, it's also one dimension. So what if you have multidimensional arrays? Say I have a list of students and I want to, or I have a list of email addresses and names, and I want to be able to output that data, right? So I would have something like email addresses. Let me say employees are something like there's an array here. Then this array is made of other arrays. So the first one is maybe say uh, payroll number. Then I'll put a value, maybe say entry 001. Then I'll put email address. Then I'll put the value to the email address. So abc at tukenya.ac.ke, right? Then besides that, so I have that is the first element. Then I have another one, and practically this is how this data will be coming with the time. If I'm taking my time to look at it, so actually I will just copy the whole thing. Then I do that and that and that. Let me put 4. So I have 002, 003, and 004. Okay. So email address here is maybe DEF. This is GHI, and this is JKL, like that. So of course I can remove this. So I have the outside array. Then I have individual arrays on the inside over here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How do I access, maybe say, how do I access this email address over here? So for that multi-dimensional array, what I'll simply do, I'll simply say echo. I'll put my array is employees. Then which index am I referring to? So this is index 0, 1, 2, and 3, isn't it?
Yes.
I'll be if I'm talking about the outside array. So I'll say index 1 if I'm talking about the second one. Then now I'll be able to get the value that I'm looking for, which is email address. And that should be able to give me uh, that should be able to give me def at tukenya.ac.ke. So I'll mask this one out. Then I'll come and run that, and you can see it actually works fine. Why am I taking my time to do this? Because most of the data that you're going to be converting, sending it back to the browser, will be looking things like this. Not quite this, but what we can do here is we can say echo. Uh, it will look something like this. Uh, so mostly it will look something like this. So don't worry about it for now. Don't worry about how it looks. Sorry. So when I output this, yeah, we'll have data that looks like this. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
if you look at it from the browser perspective, you realize that actually it is a JSON object. Okay. So
Yeah.
what I'll do here is sorry. What I'll do here is I can put end of line. Hopefully, it should be able to allow me to return it nicely. So actually, you can see console here, not console but network. When I run this one again, and you click on this array, and the response you can see the preview. Well, it's because I have attached text next to it, so that's why. But ideally, it would have given me this as an actual object, as you are able to see that. And that is what I am able now to process back on my browser for results that have come from the server. Okay? Actually, if I just omit the last statement, which is this one, it should actually return an actual JSON object. So I'll come to inspect, I'll come to network, I'll refresh, and when I pick this and I come to, you can see now it's an actual object, right?
Yeah.
So when I return that data like that, you see it now comes as an actual JSON object, which I can now be able to use to manipulate and populate data from my user interface. So that's why we are learning these arrays and that's why they are important. So you started by indexed arrays, and you said they are one-dimension arrays, and you can define them in two ways. Either use the square brackets and list the items inside it, or you can be able to define it using the array keyword and use regular brackets. Then, of course, when you want to access the particular value of that array, you will probably specify the array and the index that you are looking for. Then you've also talked about an associative array, and you said this is an array where I have value key pairs, and you can be able to refer to an element using the key. Then you have multidimension arrays, where now we are using both the index and the key, which I've shown down here. Sio ni sawa?
Kabisa.
Excellent. Now, let's look at array functions. Array functions. What are array functions? So we have several array functions. These are the things that allow us to be able to manipulate our array. Say, for example, I'll not use these. I'll not use the multidimensional one because I know it's a bit complex, but I am sure you have understood it. Let me use the index arrays for purposes of this demonstration. Let's assume we have these fruits array of ours over here. Okay,
Yeah.
and say we wanted to add a new. Say we wanted to add a new fruit. How would we add it? So we have array function, and one of them is array push. Actually, it's just one word, array push, array underscore push. So array underscore push allows you to be able to push something to the array. So what I can do here, I'll simply say add. What is the name of another fruit? Give me the name of a fruit. I'm not what
Popo.
purple. Add
Yeah.
purple to the list. So if I
Yeah.
want to add a purple to the list, I'll simply say uh, fruits equals not fruits equal. I'll simply say array push array underscore push. Then I'll give push, not push. Array push. Then I'll define the array I want to add, which is fruits, and the value that I want to add in that fruit, which is purple. Right?
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it is two words or if it's one word like that.
It is one word.
It's one word.
One word. Yeah.
So I'll have that. Now, if I was to print the array, so then it basically means that that array would now give me uh, uh, the new element. So here I can say echo JSON encode, or I can, if you don't want to use JSON encode, I can say instead of echo, I'll use print array, print underscore r. Then I give the array. You can't echo an object. You can't echo an object. That's why usually I try to encode it first of all, or use print r to output the values of the array. So if I do that, then let's look at the value that it gives us. So I run that, and you can be able to see now I have element 0 is apples, 1 is mango, 2 is oranges, 3 is pineapples, 4 is banana, and now 5 is purple. So purple has been added to that array using the array push method. So every time you want to add an element on the array, you use array push. Okay?
Yeah.
And by the way, arrays don't need to be a straight value. I can actually add a list of other, I can add an array of other elements like vegetables. So I can say array push. Then here, instead of just a simple string, I can create a new array and call it uh, cabbages and kales and spinach and carrots and so forth and so forth. Okay?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a simple value as just a regular string. So if I did that, you will see that now I have at element number 6, now I have a different array altogether. Okay,
Okay.
that's good. So that's array push, and that's what it does. We also
Now,
have,
Richard,
go ahead.
Richard, like now when you're using these arrays,
Hmm.
sometimes you are required to have that data directly into a table in a given database.
Okay.
Do you or the JSON is able to send that data in that array in a way that it becomes a record?
No, you don't
Mm.
do that. So what you'll need to do is to traverse through the array and
Mhm.
probably get all the values. So, for example, if I wanted to input all this data inside a table, I'll do something like this. Now, we had learned about control structures and we have what we call repetition, isn't it? So, I can
Yeah.
use a for each loop for each, or I can simply use for the variable I starts at 0
Uh-huh.
until the variable I is less than, then I'll count the elements of the array, which is fruits. So long as it is less than, then I'll increment I by 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
I by 1. Then from here, now I'll have each element of the array. So here I'll simply say echo. I'm assuming this is where you're going to be put them in your table. So I'll simply say echo fruit I, isn't it?
Yeah.
Echo fruit I like that. So maybe we can try to create a new line which it is not doing. I don't know why in my case it's not doing that. I believe in your case it should be doing. So this one will simulate. It will go through this array and get each element, and it will traverse that array so long as it's less than the count of that. So it will go one, two, three. How many elements are these? One, two, three, four, five. So it will go one, two, three, four because we are starting at 0. That's why I say less than the length of count will basically count for me how many elements are in that array. Okay. So that's another array function that I wanted to mention. Besides array push, we have count, which allows us to be able to count the values in an array. So if I did that and I run that, you can see, okay, fruit is supposed to be fruits, not fruit. Try that again. Now you can be able to see it gives me apples, mangoes, oranges, pineapples, and so on and so on. So in short, I have traversed through the array. I've extracted each element of the array, then and now I'm outputting each value. So in this particular case, inside here is where I would actually have done my insertion. So I cannot insert it with this as it is. I'll simply traverse through the array, then I'm now going to be able to access it like that. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
if you're using an associative array like this employees, let me copy this down here, and you want to traverse it. So I'll mask this, and you want to traverse it. So I have my employees here, and I want to traverse each and every employee. Then I want to show their payroll number. I'll simply say for each, when I pick the array itself, which is employees, as a new value, which is employee, then I'll say run the following function. Okay. So here for each employee as employee, I can simply say echo employee, which is now the singular. Then I'll give the field that I want, which is payroll number. Then of course here I'm supposed to put an end of line, which is not working. So let me just put it anyway, like that. So this will traverse through this array. It will pick each element. Then after picking each element, it will get me the payroll. It will get me the payroll number of each
Mhm.
employee in that associative array. Let's see that, and you can see it actually does that. Okay, so this is exactly how you'd simulate. If I have a JSON object coming from the user interface, I'll flatten it using this for each loop. Then I'm able to access each element independently. Then that element, I process it independent of each other, and I continue that loop until I am done. Okay, does it make sense?
Kabisa. Kabisa.
Okay, so
Mhm.
yeah, it was a slight diversion, but it's important because you asked, and it's good when you ask, we respond to them. So we're talking about array function. We have array push. Now we
Mhm.
also have array. We also have count, which you've said counts for you the element in array. You also see we have for each, which allows you to traverse through the through an array, and it will give you the values. By the way, you can use for each for these flat arrays. For
Mhm.
example, if I took these fruits, I can still use for each. Then I'll simply say, this is the beauty of programming.
Okay.
You are going to use whatever works for you
Okay.
as fruit. Then do the following. So here, because fruit is just a single value, I'll simply echo
Mhm.
the fruit. I'll simply echo the fruit and simply create a new line. Of course, in my case, it will just create a space, but not a big deal. So if I run that, it should just give me individual fruits, as you can see. So if it's going to be a complex object, then I refer to it using the key. If it's just a simple object, then I refer to it as an value, because it's going to give me one value for each. So if it's a string like this, then that value becomes a string. If it is an object like this, then that value becomes an object or an array, which I now have to reference based on the look of the array. Are we together? So you can
Yes,
see
sir.
it's actually not very complex as sometimes it looks when you have a lot of it running on code. Okay.
Yeah.
So then we also have another function called array merge. So that I think should be the second one. Array merge. Sorry, array merge. So array merge will allow us to merge multiple arrays. You can merge one array, two arrays, three arrays. You can even merge 10 arrays for all I care. It's more like concatenate, which allows us to concatenate multiple texts. Sindio? So let's assume
Yeah.
we have two variables here. So we have colors, we have primary colors and secondary colors, isn't it?
Yeah.
Primary colors,
Colors.
and so I'll use the square brackets and secondary colors, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's another array. So primary colors are red, green, and blue, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we have red here, we have green here, and we have blue here. Okay. Then for secondary colors, we have orange, we have
Orange.
white, we have green, we have black, and you can go on and on. Yeah. So let's say we want a list of all colors. How will you get a list of all colors? So I can simply say all colors as an array
Mhm.
will be equals to array merge. Then I'll tell it which arrays to merge. In this particular case, I want to merge primary colors and secondary colors.
Color.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I can actually even leave this one out because then it will mean whatever it returns is actually an array. So here I can simply say print r all colors, isn't it?
Yeah.
And put my semicolon over there, something like that. So if I run this, I'm expecting to get a one array with red, green, blue, orange, white, and so forth and so forth. Okay. So let's try and see. And you can see it actually does that. So 0 is red, green, and blue. Then now I have orange, white, green, and black. So now I have six colors instead of three colors here. And there's supposed to be seven. Are there seven?
Mhm.
There's seven. 0 to 6 is seven. So yes, there are seven. So array merge basically allows us to be able to merge multiple arrays. I can even have tertiary colors here. Tertiary colors. And now tertiary colors, I say something like purple, maybe silver, maybe gold, and so forth, isn't it? So
Yeah.
if I was to merge tertiary colors here, it will still be able to merge it, and you can now see, okay, all colors are number 66. Error, what did I miss out? Semicolon or so? Yeah, mostly I missed out the semicolon. I think that problem has been established, so we can go on and on with that. But as you can see, it is able to achieve that. That's array merge, right?
Yeah.
Um, then, sorry, we also have array filter. So you might want to. So this is number two. We also actually supposed to be number three because count was number two, isn't it?
Yeah. Count number two.
So we have array filter. Though count does not count as an array function because count applies to everything else.
Okay.
So here it allows you to filter out an array or array values, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if I give you a problem like this, so I'll simply say numbers is equals, um well, let me not do it like this. Let me generate the first 50 numbers. So I'll simply say numbers is a blank array. Okay. Then I'll
Mhm.
simply say for the variable I starts at 1, the variable I is less than or equal to 50, and the variable I increments by 1. Then I want to generate those numbers and put them in this particular array, isn't it? So I'll say array push. I'm just trying to put together what we have learned so that we see their practical use. Then I want to push inside my numbers. I want to push the value of I, isn't it? So technically what that would mean is by the time I'm exiting this particular array, number will have 50 elements, isn't it? So I can simply print number to see what it looks like. Uh, that semicolon. I'll mask this. So technically that should give me the first 15 numbers, right?
Okay.
Um, for okay, now
Complete.
what did I miss out on? For I equals to 1 to I is less than 50, what did I miss? Oh, here. Semicolon. Mostly my problems are semicolons, eh? So you can see I have the values here. So I have index 0 is 1, index 1 is 2, and so forth until I reach 50, right? So
Okay.
what if I told you I want you to filter out only odd numbers in this array? How would you do it?
I access each element,
Okay,
and that is I defined it mode. That is mode 2.
okay.
So if that is if the return is not 0,
Mhm.
it is displayed. Otherwise, it is jumped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, but I want us to use array filter in a nutshell.
So the array filter is the one that would work in such a scenario.
No, a for loop would still do, but I want us to use an array filter.
Okay.
That was the whole point. Eh?
Okay.
So for me to get even numbers, I'll simply say here. I want to use this syntax that have on the screen here. So I just to create another array called even numbers here, which will be array filter, array filter. Then I'll give the array its numbers. Then I'll run a function with the number. Uh, I think I'll call it probably yes n. Let me just call it n. Sorry, n like that. Okay. So here I'll simply say uh, if no, it's if n, the current number, divided by 2 is equals to 0, then what do you do? What do you need, what do you do in that case?
You're supposed. We want even numbers, eh?
Yes.
If it is, then it should be stored in the array.
Yeah, actually, uh, you just need to return that value so long as n divided by 2 is equals to 0. So instead of using this if, because then I'll need to push it inside here. So I would have said here, array push I would have used the array push n, isn't it?
Mhm.
That would still be able to work out, but because I don't want, yeah, that would work out. And if I come here and say print r, then I say even numbers, that would work. So semicolon here. Just tell me if I have missed another one elsewhere. I am very notorious with missing them out.
Okay.
So I think that's fine. So if I did that, print number 84, okay, clearly, uh, well, what I would have done, instead of doing that, let me just return this and forget about this. So what array filter will do is, it will array filter, then I pass the array, then I pass a function which now returns the values that I expect. And the values I expect is if n divided by 2 is equals to 0, then it should allow me to be able to return that value. Okay.
Yeah.
So do I need a semicolon at the back here? I think I need one here. Actually, even as I written it was okay. So I think what I missed out was a semicolon here. Okay. So
Okay.
even if let me just put this one back and try it first. So I can mask that and have this. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't need to push. I just need to return. I don't need to push. I need to return like that. Yeah. I think I need to return it like that. Line number 80. Well, I can't use if inside here. It's refusing. So let me just mask this and return it here. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I think that should work out. So now you can see it is only giving me 2, 4. Maybe it's looking bad. So what I could do here is uh, for each even numbers, even numbers, even numbers as even. What do I do? I simply say echo even with. Now when I put as an array, sometimes it does not look nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I write like that, I think that will look a bit nicer. So now you see I have 2, 4, and you can confirm with me all these are actually even numbers. So I've not used a for loop when I am filtering. I have just used the array filter method.
Okay.
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 So you can see this array filter. This has filtered the array and it has checked it is only returning if n divided by 2, n is the number that as I'm transversing through all the elements, just like a for each loop here, as I'm transversing through each element as an element, I'm simply checking that element that I'm currently on at. If it is divisible by 2 and it's equal to 0, then return that value, which means it is made part of this array, and it continues a cycle until it is done. So in that particular case, now I am able to sort that. So I might use a for loop, but even array filter would work best. Now this is where a for loop might not work or would be very complex. Say I have given you an object instead of a flat array or instead of an index-based array. Let me give you an associative array and ask you, in this array, I want you to give me everybody who is above 18 years. Okay? So I can pick
Mhm.
this element or this array. I'll come down here. Then I'll just modify it a bit. And maybe I can add age here. Okay? And I give the
Yeah.
age a value. So I'll say this is 21. I'll say this one is 18. I'll I'll probably say this one is. These ones have to be enclosed in brackets, by the way. The keys need to be enclosed in brackets. So this one is maybe say age, maybe 13, and this is maybe say 15, isn't it? So if I wanted to return all the employees whose ages are above uh, above 18, how would I go with that? Make a wild guess.
Y- those who are above 18, eh?
Yes.
Mm. So here we bring in the array filter.
Okay. We are clearly going to use array. So we're going to say uh, seniors. Let's call it seniors is a new array. So we're going to use array filter. Then the array we are filtering is employees, isn't it? Then on the
Yeah,
employees, we're going to run a function, isn't it? Which will have
yeah,
age, isn't it?
yeah,
So when I filter this employee, I'll run the function called with the variable age. So I'll simply return if, um, let me say employee. So employee single L. So here I'll simply say return employee. The field age is greater than or equal to 18, isn't it?
yeah.
And of course, here I can now printer the seniors. Senior, senior. Actually, let me just add an S. Seniors. So I believe that should work. So array filter, as you can see now, I have an employee and an employee has these different parameters. So I'll basically just check where the age variable, the age key is more than 18, then I'll return. So I only expect to have two values, which are the first two. And by the way, I can mix them up so that they don't look obvious. I can make this one go to the bottom. Okay. So that
Yeah.
not by chance that it has returned the first two,
Okay.
like that. So if I was to run that, I'd run it. Line number 99, use a semicolon.
Semicolon
Uh, yeah,
hapo chini.
I am very notorious with that. I hope you'll forgive me for that. So now you can see I only have the two of them. I have uh,
Yes.
NT001 and NT002, which, if you look at my list, is actually NT001 and NT002. So you can see how these array uh, methods are useful.
Sure. So
Yes.
I'm mapping a bigger picture
Okay.
um, because now I'm working now on the environment.
Okay.
So I need to. So you have told me that this data, when it is in an array,
Mm-hmm.
is super, so that when I'm taking it back
Mm-hmm.
to the database, I have to take each element.
Yes.
Then when I'm bringing it out, the same.
Yes.
Okay.
So in short, you cannot post an array into a database and you not
Mm-hmm.
get an array from the database. So what you'll get from a
Yeah.
database is some record set which you can look through
Mm.
and fetch all the elements, then you convert them into an array. Actually, we have PHP classes for doing that. We have PHP objects for doing that. They'll simply connect to your database, execute, get the records, and then return for you the results as an associative array, which is what you're seeing at looking at the screen. But an associative array is not something that you just go and print on the browser. It does not work like that. So you have to convert it to a JSON object, which you can now be able to traverse. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we still have quite a lot to go as far as arrays is concerned. I don't know if that is uh, uh, work for uh, enough work for a day. Then you can be able to look at it. Then maybe tomorrow we can proceed with the other array functions like sorting and things like that. Okay.
So there's a sorting and searching.
Yes, searching we have done, which is filter. That
Mm.
is searching.
Oh, filter.
Yeah,
Okay.
search and filter is more or less the same if you ask me. So, but there's
Mm.
sorting, which you need to sort these arrays. We need to sort index-based array. We need to sort associative arrays. We might need to sort them by keys. We might sort them by their value. We might want to get the keys only. We might want to get the values only. And we should do all of that so that now when we start working with our database, we already know how to deal with this data as arrays. So we no longer have these small problems to deal with.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I will look for a small assignment and share it. In the meantime, I think we can take a break at that, just review that. Then we'll probably be able to see how that works out.
It's fine.
So I think you have a lovely evening. Let me share this on YouTube. Then we can pick it up tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. Enjoy your evening.
I have appreciated Richard. Thank you very much. Be blessed.
Okay.